Welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, hosted by Echo and brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. In this episode, we sit down with two incredible clinicians from Boston MedFlight, Jamie Eastman and Widmac Laterion, or WID. Together, they take us inside the daily mission and operations of one of the nation's most respected critical care transport programs. From the challenges of neonatal and pediatric transports to the transition from military service into civilian medicine, Jamie and Wid share amazing insights from their unique journeys. You'll hear about the training and preparation that keep their teams ready for the most complex cases, and including high-fidelity simulations, rigorous onboarding, and the importance of crew resource management. We'll also explore Boston MedFlight's transition to the Airbus H145 D3 and how this advanced airframe helps them deliver safe, effective care to the most critically ill and injured patients. Along the way, our guests reflect on some memorable missions, collaboration across the Massachusetts healthcare systems, and what it means to be part of a program dedicated to the highest standards of patient care. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's get into it. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation Incorporated, Technisonic Industries Limited, and Airbus.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. Produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations, the Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
Hey, welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. We're here today. I'm Blake Schreider with my other favorite co-host, my only other favorite co-host, Mike Fideli.
So it better be your only other one.
How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Ready to have a great podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. So today, guys, we have a great podcast lined up for you. We've got two awesome guests. We've got Jamie and Wid, both from Boston MedFlight. So we're going to be able to talk a little bit today about the mission, the patient care, just everything that Boston MedFlight does, and just kind of also highlight the H145 that they fly in. So they have a great mission set. So I'm really excited to hear from them, from their perspective, how they're able to get out and do their daily job. So I'm really excited for today.
Yeah, same here, man. I feel like when you talk about, air medical in the United States, certainly Boston MedFlight is one of the most respected programs out there. And so to be able to have Wid and Jamie joining us today, talk a little bit about what they do, how they do it, and what makes, Boston such an amazing program. Really looking forward to that. So, but before we get into it, just a huge shout out to our partners over at MHM Publishing and Vertical Magazine. Without them, this podcast wouldn't be possible. So I want to give a huge thank you to them. And if you haven't, make sure you go over to the Vertical Helicast platform at verticalhelicast.com. Make sure you check out the other podcasts out there. Hangar Z podcast, Helicopter podcast, Real Rescue podcast, and Vertical MRO. Some awesome podcasts out there with some outstanding individuals that are on those shows. So please head on over and check them out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll jump into it. So I'd like to introduce Jamie Eastman and Wid Laterion. Jamie, Wid, how you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
What's going on, guys?
Thanks for having us.
Doing great. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for joining. We I think it's a great. We both have you guys from the same setup right next to each other, so this is going to be really good.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how the video turns out.
Yeah, we try not to trust the internet. It's nice that we live like less than 5 minutes away from each other. So
you do actually like each other outside of work, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he works out, and our wives love each other, so we kind of don't have a choice, even if we didn't like each other. So.
No doubt.
I love it.
Happy wife, right?
Exactly.
That's it. So, Jamie, can you go ahead and start us off? Can you just go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background and how you came to wind up working at Boston MedFlight?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah. I grew up in a pretty small community in northern Vermont, the kind of place that's an hour from anywhere. and volunteer fire kid cadet, little small town, and the Dart helicopter would come in and save the day when I was a teenager, and I said, I want to do that one day. That led to nursing school, paramedic school, some time with the military, working at Dartmouth Hospital, kind of parallel to the Dart folks, and then eventually down to flew at Duke in North Carolina on their adult team, air and ground fixed wing. Spent some time with a ground transport neonatal team here in Boston, and then to Boston MedFlight about 4.5 years ago.
Wow. We got a good experience and background there, Jamie.
Just a little bit of a resume, right?
Well, we're kind of parallel, but they look kind of the same with this guy, so he'll tell you a similar story.
I'm just the counterpart result.
Come on.
Oh, just a Boy Scout badge collector over here. My email is longer.
What?
So, Wid, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here next to Jamie.
My name is Widmac Laterion. Everyone calls me Wid or Mac. So my partner is always here to say 3 different names, bringing if I'm talking to the patient or someone.
So you'll answer to anything is what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, if they're not listening, then I'm like, Mac is fine because people remember that better than Wid. And they're like, what? And I'm like, you're dying. I need you to just not focus on my mobile. But yeah, no, I'm a paramedic at Boston MedFlight, and I teach and do some outreach stuff as well too. The trajectory there was a little bit different. I wanted to go to medical school for a while before COVID happened. So I went through undergrad, joined the military my freshman year in the Guard. Was a ground medic throughout that time, and then after graduating college, I joined the military. Was already in the military. Went to paramedic school, and then worked at Lawrence General, which is an RSI agency up here. Shortly after that, I then got picked up to go to the aviation group up in New Hampshire. So I went down to San Antonio, did the training for that and whatnot, came back, started flying at Dart, which was interesting coming back to the whole different aircraft standpoint. But I went up to Dart, and then after a couple of years up there, I ended up coming down to MedFlight, and I've been at MedFlight for a little over 2.5 years now.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys certainly have quite the resumes to look back on, and also thank you for your service in the military. Certainly, I'm sure experiences and exposure that you've gotten there has really carried over to be able to help patients in exponential ways now, as far as how you guys are continuing to carry out the care. But certainly, thank you guys for joining us today as well. I was wondering, so you have both been working together, which, judging by how good of friends you are, that's probably scary that they let you work together on a regular basis. But, and I know you kind of briefly touched on it, but what are your current roles at Boston MedFlight?
Yeah, so I work as a flight paramedic at MedFlight. I'm a junior medic. We have a matrix, which until you've been there for 3 years, typically you don't work with a new person. So I've been there for the last 2.5 years, like I said. I do a lot of education, both internal, external, as far as like FCCS, TDAC, and all of that stuff. And then I do a lot of our PRs and outreach to the local fire departments and hospitals as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that relationship is paramount for all the stuff that you guys are doing to have that outreach with them.
Yeah, it's pretty great. One of my other jobs is I run a flight car ALS system up in New Hampshire, which covers 18 towns. Which helps with that relationship a lot as well too. We call quite often. It's Massachusetts, and there's not a hospital stone's throw away every 5 minutes.
And then Jamie, you've been doing the simulation and kind of in the NeoPs world now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks. Yeah, so it's nice being able to 3 ships in a week. We do 12 up here, so I get to do 2 vehicle ships. So ambulance, helicopter, or the fixed wing. And then my 3rd shift in the week, we say, is admin time. So working the sim lab. Right now, we're doing our quarterly sim for all of our crews. So you have to come through for a 3-hour block once a quarter, even off orientation for the rest of your career with us. So this is obstetrics. So the crew is going through OB trauma and all of the parts that go with that. And then the other half is we do about 30% pediatric and neonatal as part of our volume, again, through all forms of vehicle. So we kind of realized about 2 years ago, hey, maybe we should have someone dedicated to doing that education-wise. So it's kind of taking on that role of hands-on trainings, working with the neonatal ICUs, working with the PICUs at Boston Children and Mass General and all that, as a liaison between the hospitals and the crew and getting some education there. It's been really rewarding quickly. Great.
I think it's great that that's a pretty high percentage. I think you said 30% of your volume for the neonate and pediatrics. I think, for those of us that don't have those specialties, we kind of cringe, when those come in. And then you think
I would love just one time, Blake, to see your face when you have to get that neonatal patient that's, micro preemie in front of you.
And it's scary just because it's unknown,
Yeah.
And I would certainly be up to the challenge.
Of course.
Dealing with adults and, primarily
seeing your
adults.
face the first time would also be priceless.
Yeah, exactly. That would be my new screen.
That deer in the
contact, right?
headlights. Yeah.
That's definitely one of those cool things, because most of us, unlike Jamie, don't come with a pediatric experience coming through the door. So it's terrifying for like the first couple of months, and then we do such a high volume of them that you quickly become very comfortable. And obviously the training and onboarding during orientation is huge, and building your confidence and getting you ready for that as well too. But yeah, no, within a few months you get enough reps where like neonates quickly became my favorite patient population.
Yeah.
But then right after that, you might dump the isolate, or the pilot might be waiting for you with a regular stretcher, and you're going to a 90-year-old instead. So it keeps you on your toes for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
What's funnier is they call for the the neonatal team, and then 3 dudes in the army show up. Wrong expected.
Like, we don't have large ones on this floor. What do you
Every time.
I think that just shows the commitment that you guys have to that specialty and that need, and especially for the area that you're in. Like I said, that 30%, that's a lot. That's a huge volume. And then I think to take that, obviously we talk about the HEMS, but you guys have that other aspect, the ground transport and the fixed wing. So there's a whole nother set that goes into that. And I think, obviously we'll definitely touch on that more, throughout the podcast, but you guys can hit it from every angle: ground, fixed wing, rotor, to those specialties to get those patients where they need to go. Short and long distances is what it sounds like.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Yeah, it's great walking in through the door and getting asked if you have your passport because you're going to Bermuda. You're like, wait, what? Or to Bermuda call, and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I've often think, at my program we do ground and air, and it's one like facet of HEMS that I've always found to be super fascinating is the fixed wing portion of it. And that's one thing I have not gotten to do in my career yet, but I always found like it obviously adds a lot of complexities. And you have the ground legs on both sides, and you have the other complexities of the aircraft that you're in and all that. But I find it very fascinating. I actually got to interact with some of the Boston MedFlight crews at here in Pennsylvania when you guys flew down, and we picked you up at the airport, and just to see that whole process that you have to go through. It's impressive to watch the fixed wing side of things, and how you have to what you have to do in order to get that patient safely in and out of that aircraft.
One of these days we'll be able to do all 3 platforms in the same call. It's usually in the ambulance. But one day we'll get the helicopter in there too, on the leg. See how it goes.
As I said, we still have that toy helicopter you guys gave us hanging out in Bedford, so it's always shared as a token.
Nice.
I know this was like, 7 or 8 months ago, but we were coming back from a flight. We landed our base here, then at our FBO at the airport that we're at, I saw the Boston MedFlight fixed wing. And I'm like, man, are y'all lost? Like, what's going on?
Very lost.
I text Jen and I was like, you know these people? You're so far away, man. Yeah. But it's just, I think it's so incredible to just see that the reach that you guys have is not just locally to you, it is international basically for you guys. So I think that's incredible. So amazing stuff you guys do.
And then hopefully we will see you guys at Echo this year. Is that correct?
That was supposed to be the plan, but I think my baby coming is good.
I guess that might be slightly more important.
But yeah, no, that was initially the plan, like especially teaching FSC as well too. But then when we got the due date moved up, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can stretch this now. Like a week makes a lot of a difference, but yeah.
Definitely got to factor in the family portion there, and that is way more important. So
for sure.
We'll look forward to seeing you next time then.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm bummed I'm missing Louisville, but it'll be a good time.
We'll save some bourbon for you.
I'll send you my address.
Perfect. Jamie, you'll be there?
Unfortunately, no. I've been playing, I think, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta for the emergency response plan for that procedure. So, unfortunately, I'll be back here too.
All right, so 2 bottles. 2 bottles.
If I'm on a call, Jamie's going to run to the hospital and hold down the fort until I can get it's hard.
So would you guys be able to just give us a kind of give us that overview then of like your day-to-day, your shift, kind of a snapshot, if you will, of your operations? Like, what are some of the mission types? Obviously, we know 30% are the neonate and pediatrics, but how far is your service area? Let's say on the rotor, and then day to day, what are the different types of missions that you'll get called for?
Normally, we come in, get a handoff from the overnight crew or the crew that's coming off, check our equipment. Everything's pretty standardized. So for the most part, it's really just double checking that nothing's missing. And then we usually, if we're a rotor, we do a shift brief. We get the 30 minutes to check the aircraft for the pilot to pre-flight and whatnot. And once he or she's done, then we go upstairs to brief with comms if you're in Bedford, or we just brief with the crew, get a layout of weather and whatnot. The rotor itself, I think on one leg of fuel from Boston to make it down to Pennsylvania, and then obviously you have to refuel and then head back up. But you take that and then draw a quick radius of that, and that kind of covers most of our service area by rotor. Anything further than that, then typically they won't evaluate it for the airplane or not. Then our ground trips go everywhere. So
yeah, I think that's half the fun of it sometimes though, right? Coming into work and never knowing where you're going to end up on that particular day.
Yeah, the cool part about it here is we have the Northeast Airlines, so we go interstate a lot. And with the Northeast Airlines, there's just an agreement of all the local hem services that essentially just take ownership of our aircraft when we go into their airspace and making sure that we get there safely. So we switch our comps to them and whatnot. The nice part about that too is it allows us to kind of make sure that the closest vehicle is always going to get to the patient. So whether it's a scene call or a helicopter or a hospital request, if we're not available or we're not the closest aircraft, then we usually call one of those partner agencies to see if they have a helicopter or ground asset available as well, crew, and then vice versa as well. Which is huge. It's I think underappreciated if you haven't flown anywhere else and you don't see like 6 aircrafts all beelining for the same place, but it really helps deconflict the airspace a lot and kind of reassures us, especially when you're getting up to New Hampshire and Vermont and the mountains and whatnot. And being able to talk to the specs that are used to having aircrafts in that airspace as well too is definitely huge.
I think just, and like you said, getting those resources, the closest aircraft available, even if it's not you and it's the next closest partner, I think that just shows like how great that continuum is, and then how everybody in that area, whether it be a competing or different provider, that everybody's there for the right reasons, to help that patient. We have a very similar thing. There's different helicopter programs around us, but we're all very closely, if we're on another mission, that it just gets rolled to the next closest available aircraft, and then some. And so, especially for those multi-aircraft scene flights, where they're asking for 2 or 3, aircraft, it's really nice to see that the communication rolls seamlessly and that everybody's working together to get the right asset to the patient at that time.
And then you guys mentioned about 30% of your total transports are the peds neo side of things. Are you seeing a large transition now with, the addition of trauma centers and heart centers and all these other hospitals that are around, transition to being primarily interfacility transports, or are you still doing a fair amount of scene calls up in your area?
I think we say that the scene to interfacility volume is like 70-30, 30 being the scene.
Okay.
We do a fair amount still, just given how many bases we have in proximity outside the city. Boston's a little funny compared to most cities, that there's like 6 trauma centers all within, 3-mile
Right.
pools of each other, which is not anywhere else in the middle of the country, right? So
You do have a few people grouped together up there, so it's certainly understandable.
and I think that's a transition to explaining like we talked about both of them. I came from hospital-based systems before that's at Dartmouth and Duke. So we, really that system supports itself, and it's friendly outside, but that's a system base. Because there's so many hospital systems in Boston, like 6, right? Hospital system, not even hospital systems. We actually those hospitals all come together and build our support system financially and our structure operationally. So our board of trustees has 2 members from each hospital system in it. So you have a medical, typically a chief medical officer, other designee, and a chief executive officer, operating or finance officer, kind of more on the business side of the house. And those folks really help decide new bases, new helicopter funding, the next budget outside of our day-to-day operations for our program. And we're also a non-for-profit agency as well. So again, because of that, those systems are able to fund and pay into us. And that's how we were developed so many years ago when they realized, hey, there's so many hospitals, we don't need 6 helicopter programs in this area. Let's do one together and do it right. And it's been that way now for almost 40 years, just over 40 years.
Wow.
And the other really nice part about that is using the undesignated roster on those hospitals. So coming from DART, I'm sure it drives you guys crazy too, is when you're landing on that scene column, or the modified scene, you see the crew heading inside and you're like, no, like I'm right here. Our Toller is going to make this such a prolonged process. But being able to use the undesignated roster, we are basically get auto acceptance to those consortium hospitals, which is huge. So even on those modified scenes that maybe the crew had the patient resting on them or deteriorating, even if they go inside, our comm specs can still be working in the background to still get acceptance and expedite acceptance to those hospitals. So whereas before I'd have to wait for anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes before you can touch the patient, we can get in and start patient care. While they're gaining acceptance of the background, knowing that we are for sure going to get acceptance. It's just a matter of which hospital is going to accept that patient, which definitely it for me is like very relieving to know that like that patient that needs to be in the air and on the way to the trauma center can get there shortly without any delays.
Yeah, it's really interesting system how that works for you guys up there. I feel like that's very unique, basically across the country in terms of the partnerships that you have with everybody and how you're able to manage that system. I'm sure that certainly has its challenges as well, trying to please everybody at the same time. But you also have that ability that you guys have resources and you're able to build those positive working relationships with each of those hospitals then as well. And I'm sure that's been a lot of growth for your entire agency.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I can only imagine that, so there's that much buy-in from the different systems that if there was a large-scale incident or anything like that, it sounds like the wealth would be spread, so to speak. Like it's almost like not one system would just be overloaded or inundated, right? If they kept getting multiple calls or multiple type patients, it almost sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody has kind of that like stake in it, so to speak. So that way they know you guys are going to be that primary air asset that's responding, but it sounds like they'll be able to communicate at least to where not one system is just going to be overloaded, not one general campus, but it could be spread out to where the hospital system doesn't get overloaded. You guys aren't overloaded. And that sounds like there's a really good, that continuum that really provides that patient flow and direction of where they need to get to.
It kind of goes in 2 ways. And we also have in Massachusetts, which is, I'm pretty sure, unique to the state. I didn't have it at places enough. We didn't have it in New Hampshire with as well, but they call it CMED. So there's a central dispatch that patches you into a hospital to give your patch. That's through the state or the regional EMS district. It's not through the hospital or the programs. So we would call Med 3, CMED, I need a patch to Mass General ER, and they patch it through. those folks also coordinate mass casualty events as well. So if you like the Boston Marathon literature you might have read, a big part of the success with their ability of the hospitals to take patients, not just showing up at the doorstep on foot because they were approached down the street, but with the ambulances are coordinated through that third party, staging system that also helps coordinate us through with our Laterion roster. So it's a whole part of that all works really well.
Sounds like there's a lot of moving parts on any day to day, but it sounds like you guys do an awesome bang up job of keeping it flowing and hopefully keeping the hiccups, to a minimum. But it sounds like that continuum really flows really well and works amazing from having so many of those moving parts and the stakeholders. But it sounds like you guys have it really ironed out and flowing really well.
For sure. And we definitely have to give a lot of that credit to the comp specs as well, too, because they do all of this in the background so that we're not having to do it. Like obviously being on the ambulance and being like, I'm in the middle of an MCI, which hospital am I going to with this patient? Right. And just being able to hop on the mic and you're told, hey, you're going to Mass General with this patient. The second aircraft is going to Brigham with this patient. They have all of that working in the background so that we're not worrying about that as well, too. It could just be both focused. So there's definitely a shout out to be had to them for them as well, too, for the work they do in the background.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So, gentlemen, you both mentioned that you had military backgrounds before and how it seems a little odd sometimes when the three military guys are showing up to do a neonatal transport. But I was wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about your transition from the military to the civilian world and some of the lessons that maybe you learned on the military side of things that were able to help you transition and what that kind of looked like overall. Whit, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
So one, going from an H60 to a 135 was I can get up, walk around, do some yoga as needed. On the long flights are now like I've got the patient's head on my knees.
In your lap, yes, literally in your lap.
Very different. But I think a lot of it too is some of the things I think were huge that you look for when you're looking at potential employers is like the safety aspect, right? And the CRM is one, which is the 3-letter acronym that gets thrown around all the time, but actually having buy-in to it is huge. So for us, like we obviously do a lot of hoists and rescue works and whatnot, and being able to have like a training pipeline for that, but then also as far as flying, right? Like in making sure everyone has equal say and being able to go on a call and not having rank factor into it. So like, sure, it's a military, right? It's like we have a much lower threshold to go out and do calls that like civilian programs like, are you crazy? Why are you lifting on this? Which took me some readjusting because like, yeah, let's go. And they're like, dude, no. Hospital.
Get your ass back down. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. But that was, I think, very different initially. It was just understanding that it's a different mission statement, right? Or a mission set. And
sure.
Understanding that like you don't like this patient is in a hospital, right? Or if you can't make it, they're going by ground to a hospital somewhere. It's not in the middle of nowhere where there is no hospital for 40, 50 miles, or they're not going to get the resources they need. So I think that part was a huge transition initially. But then also just talking about like the CRM aspect is big as well too, where like in the military, inside the aircraft, there's CRM, right? Like there's no rank, everyone's on a first name basis, and we're all really close. However, again, back to the mission set, like there's still a colonel that's going to say, hey, you're going, right? Like, and unless the PC is like, absolutely not, sir, we're not doing this, you went. So being able to have that now we can actually just say, no, we're not going. And being able to stand down for that, I think is huge, especially as it's unfortunate you see all of the crashes that happen throughout the country, and just looking at some of the NTSB reports after the fact, right? And realize trying to learn from what could have gotten better, or if there was anything better that could have happened. And being able to be like really proud of the safety aspect of our organization now, and the CRM and just culture that they push through all of the employees from the top down.
I think, when you talked about the training and stuff that you guys especially get in the military, I don't know, I've never been in the military, but when we work with a lot of our pilots are military and a lot of my coworkers have, you can just really tell when someone has that mindset of the safety is paramount, right? Like you might in the military, you're going to go on another mission that maybe you wouldn't in the civilian side, but it doesn't diminish the level of respect that everybody has for that mission set and what you're going to potentially get into, and I think I've always appreciated that more, I don't know, heightened sense of inherent things that could happen, right? Or something that other outside perspective looking in. I've always had such a respect for that. And you can just really tell that part of CRM that really kind of flows, and it kind of gets taught and kind of really pushed more at that base level. So I've always had such a great respect for that, for anybody that comes to the military, especially in the aviation side, to just learn so much. For me, coming just from the civilian side and into this public safety sector, I've learned so much. It just makes me think if I was younger, I would have definitely made some different, choices. But happy where I'm at. But I've really just learned a lot from you guys, especially those of you guys in the military, bringing it to the civilian side.
I mean, the other big difference is obviously like the patients aren't like mostly traumas too, right? So like that's the other side of it is also being like, oh, like this is a STEMI. They're not shot. You're not plugging holes. You're getting a civilian and do the stuff. You get them to the hospitals. That is definitely a different shift as well too.
A lot more variety and a lot more maybe different complexity, so to speak.
Yeah, different pizzazz.
Yeah, there's not many 90-year-old STEMIs that you're getting in the military world.
Not many, but they exist.
We were missed not to tell the story. My deployment, the first patient, we train up in tourniquets and blood and finger thoracostomy, all this. And the first patient I flew in Iraq was a retained foreign body per rectum. So, it was towards the military.
Or dental abscess or foot pain.
Wow.
I would have never guessed either of those.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't either. So.
Oh, nope. I wasn't that bingo far, that's for sure.
Man, well, speaking of those complex patients like that, I'm sure you guys get a little bit more complex in your everyday work environment right now. I was wondering if you can talk about, being one of those programs that does everything from, let's say, from cradle to grave, right? Your 23, 24-week micropermy babies through, your adult patients are on ECMO or other high acuity cases. I wonder if you guys can talk about, the types of those complex calls that you often get at Boston MedFlight, and maybe some of the logistical challenges that take a little bit of extra coordination along the way.
Thank you to our sponsor, Technisonic Communications. Technisonic Communications is a proud provider of the critical airborne communications equipment utilized every day on every mission. Law enforcement, EMS, forestry, federal and military operators all trust their communications to Technisonic. Visit TIL.ca to learn how Technisonic can support your mission communications.
Yeah, I mean, we can start off with the ECMO cases because they're all very involved, but those are the ones that usually require a lot of like pre-departure planning. So we always do a huddle before we've left the base to kind of get an idea of what's going on with the patient, if they're even cannulated yet, or if we're flying the team out from that federal or somewhere to a community hospital to get cannulated. Then planning wise, like, are they on multiple drips? If I'm doing even extra pumps and all of that stuff as well too.
Yeah.
The other big side of it is also requesting additional stuff. So obviously those patients require a lot of product sometimes. So making sure all of that stuff is already there and on hand, and it's not going to add an extra 40 minutes, an hour delay from us being able to leave the bedside. So oftentimes we will do the call before we leave, get all of that stuff ready so that when we do get bedside, all of it's going, and we just need to either stabilize the patient or figure out if they need to be stabilized and then start working on transitioning the patient to all of the transport stuff. We typically take a perfusionist with us from the hospital, which is to manage the machine itself, but we're still responsible for the patient and also understanding the machine and some of the alarms that you might get. Yep. Sometimes the perfusionist is never done with transport, so like they're more around by all of that. Instead, you're like, dude, your flow's low. Like, we need to correct this. We are a great resource to have because obviously we've gone through years of training on bypass and ECMO circuits and all of that stuff. So it's always nice to be able to pick their brains and learn from them. While also staying on top of managing the patient and doing all of that stuff. Those patients.
And now, are you doing ECMO on both fixed and rotor and ground, or is it just certain modalities that you're doing ECMO transports in?
We would love to do it by ground. It's usually more typically what we'll do. I mean, our trucks are huge compared to the back of the aircraft. That with that being said, we do fly them depending on the patient, the space, but typically those are all rotor. We don't typically fly them via the fixed wing. It's usually more often than not, if we are going by rotor, it's picking up the team from one of the hospitals, flying them to the center, and then maybe they have a ground truck coming behind us so that once the patient's cannulated, we can then transform by ground to get to the hospital.
If you picked up the team in the helicopter, flew to the facility, and they get the patient, do you then have to stay and then go by ground, or does someone else come in the ground truck?
Yeah, it's all still part of the transport. So we're there for the cannulation, and then once the ground truck gets there, we start transitioning the patient over to our transport equipment. And then once the ground truck gets there, then we load in the ground truck and then go. So typically then, if the team that came with us is going to come with us down to the hospital as well, too, especially if it's an accepting hospital that they're at. But yeah, that's usually the flow of how it ends up going.
What's the time frame like on that? Like just in general, like let's say if it goes smoothly, like what's the turnaround from dispatch to?
That's a loaded question, Blaine.
It's a loaded question, right? So, and again, we don't necessarily have a ECMO tertiary facility here. Like a lot of programs, like in North it was Europe, right? So we did a ton of ECMO and it just went back to Europe, right? Here, there's 4 hospitals that do ECMO, all within a couple miles of each other. So that's a stretch. So if they're on ECMO already, I think it's safe to say from call to patient handoff, probably 3 hours. If you're moving with a purpose, if they're not cannulated yet, and I'd say half your shift.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other side of that too is comfort level with those calls too, right? So like, depending on the crew dynamics, like some people have more experience doing those ECMO calls, right? Regardless of how long you've been there, you might be the 2-year nurse that's happened to get like 6-7 ECMO calls during that 2 years. So the flow of that ends up being very different as well. So I've had calls that take all shift and unpredicted circumstances too, and then other ones that Jamie said like 3-4 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like you never know what kind of complexity, but they can be perfectly stable on ECMO, or you get that fresh ECMO patient that you've got to still be doing a whole lot of stuff to get them safely from point A to point B, and so anywhere from like an hour to maybe 3-hour bedside time, depending on what you got to do, and move them safely. I certainly know and respect that all too well, but it always interests me to hear how other programs are going through those processes, because I feel like this is one area that I think all of us are challenged with in the transport environment.
For sure. And then the other big population, or I guess stressful population, is obviously the neonates as well too, right? Where so our configuration, whether it's for rotor, ground, or fixed wing, is we have our isolite, which on there has Tecotherm for cooling, which is more often what we'll fly for, is to get there for the expedited time to get there under the 6 hours to start the cooling if the patient needs it. But we have the nitric as well, and we have a cartridge system, not the tank system. So it's all mounted on there. And the incubator, vent, monitor, and all of that stuff as well too. So all in all, how much would you say that all weighs?
Oh, it's somewhere in the 330, 340 pounds, I think, total, with all the things and all the baggage that comes with it. With the cartridge system, you have to bring both the heads in case of an emergency. So there's another probably 20 pounds. So a lot going on with a NICU. It's funny. The smallest patient takes the most amount.
Yep. I say that all the time, and I'm like, it amazes me how something so tiny can have so many logistical challenges to move them.
Yeah.
And those are definitely the patients, both the ECMO and the NICU patients that we do a fair amount of simulation on. Our last quarter neonatal sim was we have this huge catch basin of NICUs, right? So that is, I would say Boston Children's is the pediatric neonatal ECMO tertiary center for the region up here. So we have about 9 level 3 NICUs spread across 6 states that are transferring out the high frequency, high-fi on nitric baby to Boston for ECMO. And that is the heavy lift, if you will. And we're doing it in sim this last quarter. So, transitioning a baby from high frequency back to conventional on nitric, 9 drips, right? Double, triple pressed, trying to get them Hail Mary back to the city to go on ECMO, because that system is not transferring out, leaving their hospital to start ECMO, and most of those facilities are not starting ECMO there either. So we tend to get the hot potato in the middle. And,
Figurative.
Go full send to get them into the city to get on ECMO a lot of times.
And if the medicine wasn't bad enough, then there's the logistical background stuff as well.
Yep.
Right.
So all of our pediatric calls require a bedside to the accepting team to make sure, one, the patient is as sick as billed and not just, we don't see kids. So they seem really sick to us, but they're actually fairly stable. So they don't need that ICU bed, or maybe they do need an ICU bed and they weren't billed for as sick as they were. So doing the phone calls in the background with that, making sure the sending physician, because they're still responsible for that patient, until you get to the hospital. So the sending physician, the receiving physician, sometimes our own medical control as well too, depending on what interventions need to be done, making sure everyone's on the same page of that. While you have this kid with a map of 30 in the background, that's just circling the very RNA as well too. And you're on the phone. I always carry my AirPods on me, one for dead legs, on the ground truck, but two, sometimes your hands are doing stuff while your ears and your mouth are also breaking as well too. So I think that adds a whole other level of stress as well. We had a paper last year, but one of our nurses took a picture of this and uses it in one of her lectures she gives now. But I'm just on my knees on the phone, because it's hour 4 being bedside with this really, really sick kid. And you can see the exasperation on my face of being just let me get back to the medicine. But I also do this part as well too. But yeah, no, it definitely can be a lot.
I think that's just again, like you said, but when you think of when I think of the conventional transports that I do, it's nowhere even near that level of stress and that level of specialty and that level of care. And so that, Mike, like you said, you'd love to see my face if I was confronted with that type of patient.
Just once. I have no doubt you'd be able to adapt and overcome, Blake, but
I'm up for the challenge.
I would just like to see the deer in the headlights look.
Oh gosh. I'm having anxiety just thinking about it right now. No, when you put all that together, how do you train for that? So I think of my annual training, right? And you guys do it quarterly for these type of in-person high fidelity simulations. And how do you do and bringing people in to do these things 4 times a year? So how do you train for that? What does that look like? Where do you start?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Technisonic Communications. Technisonic Communications is a proud provider of the critical airborne communications equipment utilized every day on every mission. Law enforcement, EMS, forestry, federal and military operators all trust their communications to Technisonic. Visit TIL.ca to learn how Technisonic can support your mission communications. Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Well, that wraps up our conversation with Jamie Eastman and Laterion from Boston MedFlight. A big thank you to both of them for sharing their experience, stories, and perspective on what it takes to deliver critical care at the highest level. It shows that they have an incredible support system from the various healthcare systems in their area, their administration, and all the way down to the flight crews that are on the flight line who support each other day in and day out. This is truly one of the premier and prestigious flight programs in the country. To all our listeners, thanks so much for joining us in this conversation and for your continued support of the Vertical Helicast platform. Whether you're part of a flight crew or just passionate about the world of air medical transport, we hope you found some takeaways to apply on your next shift. And if you haven't already, head on over to www.echoflightcrew.org to learn more about the teams and programs that support this community, and be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, where we continue to highlight the people and stories that make this industry great.